Hi, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio, where our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the station or the host. Please always consult with your primary care physician about any medical advice. I have with me today a nice young man, because I'm a older lady now, but I am excited to have my guest on today. I know this won't air until sometime in January, but it's near the end of the year, 2022, and what a better way to wrap up this year than to have a guest who is involved with caregivers, caregiving, and I'm thrilled to have Ryan McInnes with me today. He is CEO of Minute Women Home Care. That's up in Boston, a large home health care company in Boston, and he's co-owner of Well Aware Care, which is a monitoring software service that Ryan's going to talk about. It sounds fantastic, folks. We tend to fall as we get older. It's just a fact of life. And Ryan McInnes is also host of the Caregivers Tool podcast. And we're going to talk about that also. Why do I promote other people's shows? Because we, as caregivers, we need all the support we could get. I don't have all the answers. And I love to promote other people because it helps people. And that's the basis of my show, is helping people. And I want to welcome Ryan McInnes to Chatting with Betsy. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Betsy, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your sentiment that you just said, and certainly I can have you on my show. And I've always believed with my show is that the same thing is that, whether somebody listens to your show or my show or another podcast or all three of them, we're all offering unique information and different viewpoints on things. And the more that we can share with one another and the more that we can help each other in this industry, the more awareness is going to get out there for planning for retirement and beyond. So I can't thank you enough for having me on here, and I think your outlook on that is spot on.
Oh, well, thank you. And you're welcome. It's my pleasure to have you on, Ryan. When I read about you, and I always research my guests, and just your podcast is fantastic. And, the more we give out the resources, it helps caregivers have a better life. And I was a caregiver to my mother-in-law and my husband, and I wish there was people on, I wish there was podcasts and shows on at that time to give people resources. You know what, Ryan, I'm sure you've encountered this in the Boston area. People don't know about resources in their own backyard. They just don't.
Correct.
I didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm also a board member of a group called the National Aging in Place Council. It's a nonprofit. And I only bring that up because you mentioned resources. And the mission of the National Aging in Place Council, NAIPC, is to educate and be a resource to the local communities. So it's a group, generally it's a group of senior care professionals that are getting together, doing educational events, doing programming in the community, and trying to get the word out for those services that people can use to age in place. And so there's about 15, 16 chapters around the United States. So maybe your listeners, when they're saying, hey, where do I start? You can start looking at, maybe the NAIPC. One association that I have absolutely nothing to do with, and I'm only promoting because they do a great job. If you are starting bare bones, go to 5wishes.org. It is about advanced planning. It is advanced directives and those really important like healthcare proxy things. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's a nonprofit where you give a $5 donation and you get the downloadable material, and it's a good cause, and it certainly is there to help with that planning. And a little bit of planning goes a long way when families are in crisis and stress is high and people don't know what to do, and they're trying to make the right decision under time constraints and in really stressful situations. So that would be a gift to your loved ones and your adult children, is to have that done at 5wishes.org.
Oh yes, I did hear it in fightwishes.org. I always sing in this show, Ryan, pre-plan. We plan our lives when we want to get married or have children, where we want to go to college, careers, but we don't plan aging in place. We don't plan our end of life. What do we want our end of life to look like? It's so important to get all this done prior to a crisis, and I absolutely agree 100% with you. How did you start your company? And I love the name, Minute Women. I know you're up in the Boston area, so it might have something to do with the area that you're in. The Minutemen, right, during the Revolution?
Absolutely. The story of how Minute Women started is kind of funny. So obviously we're doing an audio. I'm this big burly guy. I got a bald head, a big beard, and I'm 6'5", and I own Minute Women Home Care. And that came about because my mom, parents retired down to Florida like so many New Englanders do, and unfortunately, shortly after retirement, she got lung cancer, which had already metastasized throughout her body. And so I went down to Florida, being an only child, with my dad and my mom, and spent the last 3-4 months of her life with her before she passed away. And that's where, unfortunately, as we all know, when you get older, it's weddings and funerals that bring people together. And my aunt, who started Minute Women Home Care, I was in touch with throughout my whole life, but obviously we're seeing more of each other in those kind of times of need. And she said, hey, listen, you quit your job to be with your mom. You got to see what being a caregiver is, what 24-hour home care is, because we hired a private agency, and eventually we had hospice. Maybe you want to go back up to Massachusetts and consider, buying Minute Women from me and taking over the company and helping people the way that you were helped. And she had been looking for an owner for many years to hand it off to and to help, and that's how I got involved in it. And the name comes from exactly what you're saying. She was a woman-owned company, so instead of a lot of places name themselves like Minuteman Plumbing, Minuteman Electrical, Minuteman this, because I'm in Lexington, Massachusetts, right outside of Boston, where the whole Revolutionary War happened and all that amazing stuff. And so she said, hey, we're a woman-owned company, so we're going to call it Minute Women. And it was hilarious, because when I introduce myself as the owner of Minute Women, I get those looks, and then I explain the story, and people have a laugh, and the irony of a big guy owning that company. But it's been great, and I look at that experience with my mom as the last gift she gave me was being able to run my own company and be my own man and help people the way that we were helped in those times of need.
That's such a beautiful example, Ryan, of taking a tragedy and turning it into a triumph and helping people. And I meet so many people doing my show that have taken their tragedies and turned it into a triumph, doing something in memory of someone else and helping other people. That is really awesome. Actually, I have to say, Passion World Talk Radio is a woman-owned company. Lillian Caldwell, she started it. She's the president, CEO, and Jeannie White, she's the station manager. So
that's outstanding.
Yeah, it's really cool. So your Minute Women Home Care is in the Boston area. So anyone who's in the Boston area, how would they use your service? How would they contact you?
They could just type in Minute Women into Google, and they'll find our website. Our website's robust. It has a lot of information. You can listen to the podcast. You can watch the videos, and it's a good starting off point to making the decisions on what's best for your situation.
And what services do you offer? Is it home health aides? Do you have nurses?
So we have aides only. We do home health, certified home health aides, and some certified nursing assistants. For us, they're very interchangeable. The the tasks that a CNA can do in a nursing home or in a more medical facility are tasks that would never be done in the home, so under non-medical model. So we basically send caregivers out to families who need help, with their parents and keeping them in their home and out of the nursing home for as long as possible. So we offer, up to 24 hours and live-in services for the greater Boston area.
That's great to know for all of you who live in Boston, because this show is international, but I know personally I didn't even know about my senior living center services and what they offered until a pharmacist told me. And I lived in this town for many years, and I didn't even know what they offered. So I always tell people, check your local resources because they are there. We just don't know about it until we need them.
Yeah, I think things are changing a little bit in that regard. And understandably, I'm sure everybody agrees, when you're at a party or having dinner with friends, you really want to talk about the positive things, which, what are your kids doing? How are they growing? But with the silver wave happening and so many folks turning 65 and above, it's really kind of ended that taboo, or is ending that taboo about talking about what's going on with your parents, because we all know people that have been either affected by dementia or fall issues, or people's parents are starting to decline, or like me, my friends and family know that my mom had cancer. So you end up having those conversations now, and I think that more transparency is always a good thing, and being able to talk about these things, which opens up the dialogue of people asking questions and learning more. But certainly a great starting point for most people can be your local council on aging. Up in Massachusetts, nearly every single town has one. So if you type in council on aging in your town, it will pop up, and maybe not every state has a council on aging for each town, but you probably have at the very least a regional senior center, so you can start asking questions there, and your taxpayer dollars are going to funding that. So it's something that you can utilize and gain a wealth of information from.
Yes, and there's also, I know in New Jersey, I don't know if it's in every state, we had the Office of Aging where you can call, and our local senior center that's phenomenally full of resources. And you're right, taxes are paying for it. Take advantage of it. And you brought up something interesting, Ryan, and I think it's a generational thing. When I just turned 65, actually, this month, my mom did not want to discuss what her wishes are or what would happen if she could no longer care for herself. She was very determined to stay in her house, but she was falling, so my brother said, you have to go to assisted living. Whereas me, on the other hand, I'm thinking, okay, how can I age in place at home, make my wishes known to my son and to other, family members of what I want. I already have my end of life planned, and not that I'm morbid, but I had to do it with my husband, and I just said, okay, let me start pre-planning my funeral and getting that done with. So people are afraid, I think, to talk about that, but we have to discuss it. It's very important, and I always say I can't stress the importance of getting your wishes known and start taking steps if you want to age in place in your home as far as safety, guardrails, safety grills. Some people redo their bathroom. I mean, of course, if you could afford it. And I just think that your service that you offer, the Minute Women Home Care, is phenomenal. And you also have another awesome business. You are a busy guy. Your Well Aware Care, that is a software monitoring service to detect if people fall, if there are accidents. Can you please tell us about that? That sounds so interesting.
Yeah, and I have a great resource for people that, again, I'm associated with, but it's really great for people to know, and I'll tie that in as well. I want to provide your listeners with as much value as I can. So I've done private home care for over a decade plus, and we've seen the cost of care rise dramatically. And, the Massachusetts area is right around $36, $37 an hour for home care. And so, what we are seeing is not only is the cost going up, but also the minimum hours is going up as well. And that is because there just aren't enough caregivers to take care of everybody. There's just not, it's simple supply and demand. There's just not enough supply for the amount of seniors that are looking to age in place as much as they can. And a great resource for people, it can be a little bit dated, so you have to take it with a grain of salt, is if you type into Google the Genworth cost of care study. What that is it is a interactive map that you can click on your state and the area of the state that you live in, and it will tell you on average what your home care prices will cost, what your assisted living prices will cost, and what a nursing home facility will cost you in your specific area. So that way you can kind of get an idea without having to call up a bunch of people of like, hey, what's the ballpark of this going to cost me on an annual basis or a monthly basis. So again, that's the Genworth cost of care study. And so as you see that costs go up, I was getting very concerned about, hey, listen, private home care was really catering to the wealthy, the ones that could pay, tens of thousands of dollars a month for in-home one-on-one care. But it's now even becoming more expensive, which is pricing ourselves out of the market even for some middle-class individuals and upper middle class. And so I was getting a lot of calls from folks that were looking for just a few hours a day, or mom was falling, but not often enough to justify the need for private home care. And so I knew that technology was going to have to be an alternative option for private home care. There is nothing that is going to replace private home care at this point in time. There are no robots like in the Jetsons that are going to be able to do everything for you. If you are that in need of one-on-one care, you're going to have to pay for that. But an alternative, if you don't have the means for that, is something like well-aware care, where we do fall detection and remote monitoring of families. And so what we have found with a lot of folks is that a lot of people get pendants, and they get those pendants that have a button, and when you press the button, 911's called, and the cavalry comes, and the fire department shows up, and that whole thing occurs. And what generally is happening is that there certainly are catastrophic falls in which 911 should be called, but there are a lot of falls that aren't catastrophic, in which somebody slides off of a bed or slides off of a couch, or slow falls on the ground, and they just need help getting back up. And what we are trying to do is have fall detectors that are wall mounted, that plug into an outlet. You mount them on a wall, and it doesn't use a camera, and it just uses radar to scan the area, and it can tell when somebody has fallen on the ground. And then it gives that individual 90 seconds to get back up, so in case they're tying their shoe or petting the dog. And then if they get up on their own, we don't call anybody. But we do register that as a fall. So what we are doing is trying to give a really 360 view of what's going on in the home. So if somebody does fall on the ground and they're down on the ground for more than 90 seconds, it will send an automatic text message, email, and automated phone call to an unlimited number of contacts to let them know that a fall has occurred, so that you can get over there with your family member or a neighbor to help mom or dad get back up off the ground. And so you may say, hey, Ryan, why wouldn't my mom just press the pendant? Well, I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to that said, we gave mom the pendant, and one of three things happened. Either she forgot to wear it, she was wearing it and didn't press the button, or we found out that she's just refusing to wear it. So like, she's open to wearing it, but she forgets to wear it, or she doesn't want to wear it, so she won't wear it. And then the third option is, and which is the craziest one, is she wears it, and then when she falls on the ground, she refuses to press it because she doesn't want a bunch of firemen and the whole neighborhood knowing she fell again. And so we've talked to families who have said, yeah, they just waited until, we showed up and it was 6 hours later or 4 hours later and we got them up off the ground. So what we're really trying to prevent is somebody being stranded on the ground for 6 or 8 hours and letting family members decide what the urgency level is for their loved ones. And if a family does want 911 called, we can tie that into a service that will call 911. But for a lot of falls, you don't need emergency assistance. You just need somebody to go over there and help out mom or dad.
Yes, that's true. Here we have the reverse, 911 that you could call. The fire department or police department will come and, lift the person up. But, if it's like a continuous, constant thing, they'll probably tell you to get a service or suggest it. And you know what, too, Ryan, as you were speaking, I was thinking, what happens if your loved one has dementia and they don't even know they're wearing it and they don't know how to press the button?
Absolutely. We had an individual in an independent living facility. I think it was an assisted living facility, and the adult child opted to add in cameras. Like, we have certain per diem items that if you really want a camera, we can put a camera in your home. But the fall detectors do not have cameras on them. But anyways, their mom fell, and the fall detector picked it up and sent the automated message to the daughter. And the daughter went on her phone and looked at the camera and saw her mom was profusely bleeding and was right next to one of those pull cords in the assisted living. So she could have gotten help, but she was so confused and dizzy from hitting her head, she didn't have the wherewithal to realize that the pull cord was right there. So we were able to get emergency services over there within 7 minutes, I think it was, 8 minutes of that fall being detected. And so, to your point, if somebody's unable or has dementia or hurts themselves bad enough that they're unable to press that button for whatever reason, that button is rendered useless. And so, yeah, it's great to be able to have 911 show up when you've had a slow fall, when it's really, truly not an emergency in terms of like life or death. But it can become life or death even if you don't injure yourself, if you're stranded on the floor for hours or days. I was down in Florida last year visiting my dad, and he told me that one of his neighbors was on the ground for 3 days because nobody realized they fell and they couldn't get up off the ground. And obviously, the longer you're on the ground, you become dehydrated, you become weaker, you are going to end up in the hospital, which is the last place you want to be in, because you usually come out of the hospital worse than when you came in. You're weaker, you're tired, you're exhausted, and that's when you really start to see falls and injuries happen, is right after a hospital visit, because somebody's so weak from all the stress that comes with going to the hospital for a few days.
Yes, and I have heard stories of people waiting that fell and were waiting for help, and it was out of the kindness of concerned people that they would call the police to do a well visit.
Absolutely.
Because, it's something to think about, folks, and don't think, oh, my mom or dad are fine or I'm fine, it can't happen to me, because it can. And things change in a spin. Now, I'll tell you that. Now, is your well-aware care, is that just in Boston, or can people anywhere in the U.S. have that?
It's nationwide, and if I could just mention one other thing about well-aware care. So we can drop ship this anywhere, right? So, and then we have a very simple app that can be used to install these. It should take no more than 5 minutes per device to install them in your home. It's very streamlined and simple to use. But I just want to mention that we also, the fall detection is really kind of in a good way a Trojan horse for a lot of families. And the reason I bring that up is what we're seeing with families is that a lot of them are using it just for the fall detection. But what we do with the hardware, we're a software company. We make the software and we integrate existing hardware into our software. So we try to figure out multiple uses for these devices. So not only does it notice when falls occur and it reports those falls, it also can let you know how often somebody's going to the bathroom, what rooms they're spending the most amount of time in. We also have a smart bed pad that goes under the mattress that will let you know the quality of the sleep that somebody's getting, how long they're sleeping for, when they're getting up in the middle of the night, when they're going back to bed in the middle of the night. And what families are finding is that a lot of seniors, and if you're over 65 by technical definition, and I'm sorry, Betsy, I know you just turned 65, but technically
okay.
People over 65 become a fall risk. And so what families find out is that mom or dad is falling and they're getting back up on their own. And the problem with that is, and it's good that they're getting back up, but the problem with it is that the best way to know about future falls is to know about past falls. If your loved one has fallen, that means that they're very, very likely going to fall again in the future. And so families are starting to say, oh my God, we got a fall alert, and then they go into the dashboard and they see all these recovered falls previously. And then they start digging into the data and they start saying, oh my gosh, I have a really good idea of what's going on in mom's home. And when the PCP asks, hey, how did this bruise happen? And mom says, well, I don't know, I must have just bumped into the wall. It's like, no, mom, I see that you fell 2 weeks ago and then you got back up on your own. And so you are going to be able to, and why I get excited about it, and you can tell I'm excited, Betsy, is that we're going to be able to help families like plan for care, and we're going to be able to help families have a kind of a 360 view of what's going on inside their parents' home in a good way that allows them to say, hey, listen, mom, we can install grab bars for you because we're seeing you're having issues with falling, and you're falling most often in the bathroom. So let's put grab bars in the bathroom so that you have something strong to hold on to so that you don't fall again. And adult children can use this information to keep their parents in their home longer and not send them to a nursing home, because what happens in our industry right now, and I see it every day because of private home care, is that people don't know what's going on until a major event happens and somebody goes to a hospital and they're like, I didn't realize that mom was having such a hard time living at home. And then by then it's too late because mom fell and broke her hip. And once you break your hip, statistics are you're going to pass away in the next 16 months. And a major life event occurs where somebody's baseline is permanently changed for the worse and their quality of life goes down. Well, how can we help people for a really low cost be able to be a bit predictive on what's going to be happening in the future so we can prevent those crises and those major catastrophes from happening in the first place? And so well-aware care is meant to be low cost. I mean, you're talking this information is $50 a month as a service. So, I mean, it really is meant to help people that are on a budget, people that can't afford a lot of care, and hopefully it's going to help families be able to make decisions that are going to be able to keep their parents' quality of life as high as humanly possible and hopefully prevent some major injuries. So, I mean, if you're interested in it, you can go to wellawarecare.com. I'm not going to do much more than that, but I just wanted to let people know that it's meant to be. We've designed this program and the software to be low cost for people. So we're not like a private home care company that charges a lot, or an assisted living that's $8,000 a month. And assisted livings are good for what they are, but for a lot of people, $8,000 a month is just not doable.
It's true. Well, I love it when people are passionate and excited about what they do, Ryan, and I know that you are, and I admire that in people because I get very passionate about what I do. And for people to know about resources like your well-aware care, I mean, my mom fell. Like I told you before I started to record, my mom was falling. And when she fell the last time, my brother said, that's it. You've got to go into an assisted living. And so people can even use this service in assisted living so that they could be watched in their living quarters. Because as we were discussing earlier, I want people to know this, and Ryan, you brought that out to me, and which is an excellent point. I want people to know that assisted living is great. My mother's having a great time. She really enjoys it. Would she rather be in her home? Yes, but she's enjoying herself. But you know what?
It's better than a nursing home.
Yes, they have their own, I guess what you call it, apartments and a personal living space. And you're right. I mean, somebody wouldn't know that my mother fell unless she didn't come down for breakfast, because my mother doesn't need any help with getting dressed or anything.
Exactly.
But she meets her friends. Yeah.
Yep. So I was going to say, just a very quick story is that we had an individual that was sleeping on the couch with her mom in the bed because she would get up in the middle of the night and she would fall. And he was doing this for months because he could not afford private home care. And when we installed the smart bed alarm, it doesn't make an alarm; it just sends off a notification. The assisted living agreed that they would send that notification to one of the caregivers that's on the overnight shift, so the caregiver could come in when the notification came in and assist his mom to go to the bathroom and then get her back in bed safely so she wouldn't fall. And he sent us an email from I think it was down in Florida or something like that, where he was like, I'm on a vacation. I went from sleeping on a couch in an assisted living and basically living with my mom on a couch to being able to take a 2-week vacation with my family because I know that my mom is going to be safe and the assisted living is going to know when she's getting up so she can get assistance. And that's a perfect example of what you said. We had another client that had dementia, so she didn't know to pull, she wouldn't remember to pull the cord and press the button. And her daughter visited with her right before lunch, and then it was time to go down to lunch, shortly. She went down to her car, and because she knew the assisted living was going to get her to lunch, and when she came back from lunch, she fell, and she got the notification right as she was kind of leaving after lunch. So the story's a little bit misrepresented. She had lunch with her mom, and then she left after lunch, and her mom was in the apartment. And while she was down in the car getting ready to leave the assisted living, she got the notification that mom fell. So she went back up there, and sure enough, she was on the ground. And that poor woman would have been on the ground for 4 hours until the assisted living came and got her for dinner, because the assisted living's not checking on people. That's not their job, to check on people in individual apartments between the meal times. So there are gaps of coverage when it comes to assisted livings, that they are not responsible to check in on your parents. That can be difficult areas like you just mentioned, Betsy. So those are two perfect examples of where an assisted living can really utilize this, and families in assisted livings can utilize this. And my gut tells me is that well-aware care will be incorporated into assisted livings across the country. It will just be automatically built in so that families can have this device with the services they get, so that they know what's going on with their parents.
Yes, that is a very excellent service, Ryan. I feel for people to take advantage of, because people do fall in their personal living space, even if they are in a assisted living. I know that, my mom is very independent. God bless her. She's going to be 93 in March. She doesn't need any assistance in medicine or getting dressed. They come, I think, check in the morning. My mom has a routine. She meets her friend downstairs for breakfast, and she's downstairs all day doing activities. But you don't know what could happen during the night. I think if anyone is in an assisted living center, this well-aware care that you offer is something to seriously consider having. I think it's very important. And can you tell us about your show, the Caregivers Toolbox podcast, and where people can find that? And
yeah, absolutely. And it's actually kind of an interesting story in the sense that everything we've talked about today is just like a giant circle. So when I was early in my days of Minute Women doing private home care, I was shocked on how many people were coming to us in crisis and didn't know, about advanced planning and directives and healthcare proxies and some of these kind of fundamental things. And granted, I didn't know about any of this stuff when my mom got sick, but I just thought I was the anomaly, and I realized I wasn't. I was the norm. And so I started going to Council on Agings to do presentations and education events. And I was finding that, as an individual private home care company, nobody really showed up because they were worried I was going to, try to sell to them. And if the weather was bad or people didn't feel like showing up, I'd be spending a lot of time and energy not really helping a lot of people. So I said, hey, listen, if people aren't going to show up to the presentations in person, how about I do a show? And I decided to start podcasting. And in the beginning, it was really me and this woman, Janet, who's my director of client care. And we were just kind of sharing anecdotal stories about what we had seen and giving advice based off of our knowledge. And it just kind of grew into having guests like yourself, Betsy. You should come on, and other, great individuals that are trying to help people. So it's really a labor of love. It's not a money-making money-making machine by any means. It's really meant to just say, hey, here's information out there. Podcasts are really popular, and, if you're looking for information, here's one of a few places you can get it. And it's funny because that podcast led me to meeting the people of the NAIPC, the National Aging in Place Council, which, like I said before, is focused on educational events. And we're putting on those educational events successfully because we're under the umbrella of a nonprofit and really focused on education. And where it circles back is I met the well-aware care folks at the National Aging in Place Council. So it really is a circle on how I've gotten so involved in trying to educate and help people and make sure people are staying safe in their home by being the owner of Minute Women, doing the podcast, and through the podcast learning about the National Aging in Place Council, and then learning about well-aware care through the National Aging in Place Council and bringing me to you today. So it's all interconnected, it's all intertwined, and it's a great way to be part of this community and to help folks. So certainly if you have a podcast just like you found Betsy's, you can type in the Caregivers Toolbox and you'll get to hear my anecdotes and my stories and different guests that we have on, and hopefully people find it valuable.
I'm sure they will. I was impressed by some of the guests that I heard, because, different parts of the country, you'll hear maybe something pertaining to that part, but there's also guests that, are all over, or services that you could use, or they can help guide you to a place in your area. I listen to other podcasts myself, and I learn a lot because I don't want to stop learning. And I would love to be on your show, Ryan. I could definitely talk about how I became a talk show host, which I never thought I would be in a million years. But that's my husband's journey. That journey brought me to where I am today. And, a tragedy in my own life, my husband being diagnosed at the age of 56, turned out to be a life-changing, life-altering journey for me, and I'm thankful. I thanked him when he was dying. I thanked him for his journey and making me a better person.
Absolutely, and my condolences with your husband. And what you find in this industry is that it's people like our stories that then get motivated to do this. And it's really important not to pat ourselves on the back, but a little bit in the sense of, family caregivers feel isolated. Family caregivers are trying to juggle their own family, work commitments, and then now all of a sudden the weight of caring for a parent or both parents is on their shoulders. And that can feel very isolating, and that can feel very like you're the only one doing in the world that's doing this and going through this. And then all of a sudden you listen to podcasts, and there are a lot of them that are great out there, and certainly find one that resonates with you, whether it's mine or Betsy's or somebody else's. Or maybe all of them, but then it lets them realize that they're not alone in this journey. There's a lot of people that are silently suffering and are somewhat isolated because of this. Because, hey, listen, if you have a family commitments, work commitments, and then all of a sudden you're caring for your loved ones and your family caregiver, there's not a whole lot of more time left to be able to go out and find people that are on the same journey as you are, and to vent and to have a group chat about this stuff, because you're busy caring for people and you're busy keeping the house in order, and that's a lot of work, and it wears on people. So I think these podcasts are good for kind of the mental side of family caregivers to know that, hey, we're not the only ones doing this and going through this, and there's a lot of people like you, and what you're doing is commendable, and it's hard, and it's appreciated by your family members, hopefully.
Yes, that is so true, Ryan. And I say this in my show quite frequently, that people feel that they're alone and how they feel, but they're not. But they're afraid of the judgment of what will people think if I say, I don't like caregiving, or, I snap sometimes. That's why one of the bases of my show is for people to know they're not alone, for resources to help them have a better life by knowledge. And I always say, education It's very important for a caregiver, knowledge. I know in my own personal life, there wasn't information 20 years ago with my mother-in-law when she had Alzheimer's. It just wasn't there. And it was a little better with Matt, but in 2010, there wasn't much information. There wasn't podcasts out there. And I didn't know resources for my husband's situation until after Matt died. Then I'm hearing all these resources. I'm like, you know what? If I didn't know about it, and then other people didn't know about it, and I want to help them to know about it. And the more, people have knowledge and know people that could help them, I think it's better for the caregiver. I mean, caregivers now have an advantage where the super, internet highway, and there's so much information out there. And I know people might get offended when I say this, but I'm a Jersey girl. For a caregiver, I'm going to tell you, because this is just how I feel, there's no excuse at all for a caregiver not to be educated. If when you are educated and you had to handle behaviors, you are going to have a better, less stressful life, and it's better for your loved one because you know how to handle them and give them a better quality of care. And if you could, binge on Netflix or whatever streaming service, you could binge on listening to people, watching videos. I know it helped me. I wish there was more out there at the time for me to have been more knowledgeable. And that's
I mean, it's a little bit of tough love that you're giving, but I mean the resources are certainly out there, and it's one of those things that it's very difficult for families. I mean, when you talk, I think most people don't have a problem in general talking about death in a form of like, hey, death and taxes, they're guaranteed to happen, in kind of that, tongue-in-cheek way. But then when it comes down to actually, like you said, planning your funeral, planning how you want to go, or what your choices are, nobody, for some reason we have this cognitive dissonance that somehow that's not going to happen to me, or it's going to happen way down the road, or we'll worry about that, some other time. And then all of a sudden, 1 week turns into 20 years, and then all of a sudden you're the one that's, in the midst of something, and you're realizing that, hey, it would have been really great if I had talked to my parents about these things so I know what they want. And so that's where I've been sharing on podcasts as well, is that, I think the onus is on the older generation to help out the younger generation in this. And maybe we won't get the 80-year-olds to do it, but somebody that's 65, if you're 55 through 65 and you have children and you have adult children, the onus is on you to sit them down and say, hey, listen, we need to talk about what's going to happen when I go. And here are here's the 5 wishes, or whatever organization you want to use, or however you want to do your healthcare proxies and your advanced directives, and ideally your will. But start with those 2 major things, advanced directives and healthcare proxies, and talk about what you want done. And that onus is on you, and you have to stop the continuing of not talking about these things, and it has to happen with the adult children that have their own children that are adults as well, and seeing what happens when you go through that crisis and you don't have any type of navigation whatsoever. That should be the wake-up call that it has to end with you, and you're going to make sure that your kids don't go through the same situation of this turbulent storm without GPS, not knowing where the rocks are, not knowing where the shallow waters are, and hey, you've got to navigate it in the midst of the night. And it's like, well, this is not going to happen again to my kids, and that's where my tough love comes in as the Boston guy, to say, hey, listen, this is your job now to make sure it doesn't happen to your kids. And then once you end that cycle, your kids are going to learn that they're going to have to talk to what would be your grandkids about, hey, I'm now 55 years old. Bad things happen when you get older, and it's time to sit down and have the talk about, if I get hit by a bus next week, I want this to be as easy as it can be for you, and just justify that in my monologue here. But just to justify it is you're giving a gift to your kids. you're gifting them the peace of mind that they're not going to be second-guessing themselves for 20, 30 years on did they do the right thing for mom and dad. And that's the peace of mind that you're going to be providing them and giving them, that they can sleep at night saying, hey, mom didn't want to be left as a vegetable. I pulled the plug because that's what she wanted me to do, not because that's what I thought she wanted me to do. And that, that's a big gift to give your kids. So come from that angle that you're helping your kids as you did growing, raising them. And one of the final gifts and things you can give them is that peace of mind that you're going to be treated the right way and they don't have to second guess themselves if they did it correctly.
Absolutely. I agree 100%, Ryan. Ryan, where can people get in touch with you and find out more information about you as an individual? If you want to.
Certainly. I mean, yeah, right. Well, I have my own small website. I do some speaking now and again. If you typed in Ryan McAniff into Google, I'll come up. But, as much as I appreciate this and the opportunity, really, where I can help the most amount of people is through well-aware care. And again, it's relatively inexpensive, especially compared to some of the other offers out there with assisted living and private home care. And if you're interested in well-aware care, you can go to my website. You can go to wellaware.com. You can reach out to us. We can help anybody in the country. I mean, certainly I have my private home care company, but that's a needle in the haystack. It's a small 15-mile greater Boston area that we can help people. And certainly you can call me up about that. But, I think the well-aware care is going to really resonate with the most amount of people. So that's how people can get in touch with us through wellawarecare.com.
Thank you, Ryan. Ryan McAniff, I wish you, I know you're already successful, and I hope many people contact you about your well-aware service, because it definitely sounds phenomenal. And I want to encourage people, Google Ryan McAniff. All the information will be in the blog. So please read the blog that Jeannie White, who's station manager, writes. I want to thank Jeannie for that and for producing the show. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, CEO of Passion World Talk Radio, who makes this all possible. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you for listening, subscribing, sharing. Please share this show to help other people. This is what it is about. And when you share the show, you are helping me carrying out my vision to help as many people as possible and to honor Matt's legacy. And I also want to encourage people to subscribe to Chatting with Betsy. It is for free. I'm on iHeart, Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Music, iHeart, and those I can rattle off right now.
You're on all of them.
My brain. Haven't had my coffee yet. And I just want to wish everyone, I know this won't be aired till January, but happy, blessed New Year, a peaceful one. And I just thank you, Ryan McAniff, for coming on and doing what you do. And I hear your passion, and I love talking to like-minded, passionate people. It gives me hope. It gives me hope that there are people out there just as you are, just as I am, that are helping people. We want to help people. That's the bottom line, is helping people. Chatting with Betsy is a labor of love. I enjoy what I do. I learn from each guest. And whether you're a caregiver or not, I think my shows could benefit anyone, because I talk to people from all walks of life. And I know they've helped me, that's for sure. And I just want to thank everyone again. And as I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you could be anything, please be kind, shine your light bright, because we certainly need it. And if everybody was kind and shined, it would be a much brighter, happier, peaceful world. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. You'll hear from me next year, everyone. Bye-bye.